The Bologna process, harmonizing Europe's higher education, some pros and cons. The original aim of Bologna was to introduce the bachelor's and master's course pattern across Europe and make degrees portable and credits more transferable. But a lot more has been added since, for example, on lifelong learning and PhDs. And the number of countries signing up to the EHEA has almost doubled from 25 to 47. There are reports that clearly show that the Bologna process is on track and that the central objectives have been met. Developments over the last 2 years have also brought significant steps closer to the realization of the EHEA. When we talk about the pros, we talk about the spirit of Bologna. The Bologna process has been key to the success of European higher education in spirit, if not in substance. It has provided a flag around which reformers have rallied. It has been a catalyst for innovations that had little to do with the action lines agreed at the successive EHEA ministerial meetings. More important still, Bologna has opened up a space for dialogue on difficult policy issues. Finally, it has heightened consciousness of the common legacy of European universities and the contemporary challenges they face and their future. The problem is that nowadays higher education is seen more as a bundle of funding, structural, or managerial issues, rather like the bad side of Bologna, and less as an academic enterprise, whether in terms of transforming student lives or shaping new ideas, promoting mobility and exchange, so the good side of the Bologna. Now, on the 13-year anniversary of the reforms becoming law in most of Europe, Horst Hippler, the head of the German Rectors Conference, HRK, which represents higher education institutions, harshly criticized the Bologna reforms. He claims that the current approach of hurrying young people through their studies and getting them into a job is wrong. The universities have to educate people as well as train them for a job, he said, something that doesn't happen with the new bachelor's degree. He said companies wanted to hire well-rounded individuals, not just graduates. But students required more time in order to develop their personalities. Hippler also said that the goal of making it easier for students to study abroad has not been reached. The new European Credit Transfer and Accumulation System, ECTS, has not made courses intercompatible, and getting credits recognized is still a challenge. Hippler also said that German universities needed more money to cope with the current flood of students. So the Bologna process is controversial for good reason, but there is no alternative, as the old classical traditional degrees have been replaced by the bachelor and master system. Even the harshest critics of Europe's biggest ever higher education reform recognize that 13 years after its introduction, that the basic political idea is and was compelling. The basic idea was to allow people to study without borders and to create exchanges between researchers at Europe's universities. And the fact that often more hurdles were created than removed cannot be entirely blamed on the reforms. There are still many problems, and statistics prove those problems. The number of students switching universities is far too low, while the number of people dropping out is too high. The structures are far too inflexible to cope with students spending semesters abroad or for the realities of combining studies with having children and working part-time. So it's true that the new system produces graduates more quickly, but unfortunately it produces fewer people who fit the profile that the industry is actually looking for. Although 80% of students might say they're happy with their studies, a great deal of work is still needed to properly implement the new Bologna reforms aimed at harmonizing degrees across Europe and encouraging mobility. Many studies and surveys show that students perceive the Bologna process as restrictive and rigid, hampering mobility rather than encouraging it. An indicator of skepticism concerning the benefits of the Bologna process is the fact that only 22% of the institutions surveyed reported that most of their students will enter the labor market after finishing the first cycle. Employers' lack of information on the Bologna principles, the content of the study, on the one side, and the belief among academics and parents that the master's level is the real degree on the other side, may explain the apparent reluctance of graduates to enter the labor market after concluding their first cycle of studies. So critics of the Bologna process stress that the new curricula are compressed versions of longer programs, and that there will not be enough time for assimilation, reflection, and critical approach to learning, which can undermine the quality of the degree. Under these circumstances, the employability of the new graduates might be reduced when competing with graduates from the previous system of a longer first cycle. Whether Europe will reap the benefits of the current reform of the European higher education area remains to be confirmed by labor market and students' mobility data, which is not fully available. Thank you very much.